Hey everybody, it's Daniel here. It's Friday. I've got a new video. This one's on market segmentation. And market segmentation is a term that you've probably heard before. But this video should hopefully clear up a couple things and why it's important to segment your hotel's production. Let's take an example here, this property level performance. Let's say you have a hotel that did $3.4 million in revenue last year, but your local negotiated market segment is down $1 million. That would be a huge red flag. So without market segmentation, you wouldn't know that that was going on. So let's start with this little diagram that I built here, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Obviously at the top, you've got your property level performance, which is kind of an umbrella that everything goes underneath. So your property level performance is total property revenue, total room nights, things like that that aren't segmented in any way. From there, I like to make a distinction between rate plans and market segments that are bar-based and not bar-based. And basically all that means is, are they influenced or controlled by your bar rate strategy? So for example, if you have an advanced purchase that's 15% off of your bar rate, that is a rate code that is directly influenced by your bar rate. So that would be considered bar-based production. Some things that are non-bar-based is, for example, if you have a local company named Smith Company that has a rate of $69 and the rate is always $69 regardless of whether or not your bar rate is $100 or $200, then I would shelve that under the non-bar-based here. So underneath those two umbrellas, you have your market segments. And on the next slide, I have quite a few examples of market segments that I'll try to run through. But market segments and rate codes here, rate codes being the smallest level that you'll typically be looking at as far as production goes. These are two very important levels here. So you can have multiple rate codes shelved under certain market segments. For example, that local negotiated that I mentioned earlier. Under your local negotiated market segment, you may have 10, 20, 30 accounts. So the rate code, that is about as specific as you'll typically go. But you do look at both of these on a revenue call. And I'll have an example of that here at the very end of the call, of looking through market segments, looking at year-over-year production and why it's so important. All right, so let's go to the next slide. I'll try not to kill too much time on here. But this is a list broken down in the left column by bar-based, on the right column by non-bar-based market segments. And this is not a one-size-fits-all. So if you have a property that does, 60% group and 40% transient, then this probably is not going to cover all the bases for you. Also, too, if you're in a really, really nice 5-star full-service property, this also probably won't be all the market segments you want to look at. You may want to get more specific. But for the select service properties that we manage, this covers most of the bases. So on the left here, we have our bar-based, like I mentioned earlier. On the right, we have our non-bar-based. So I'll just run through a couple of these quickly. For example, you have your retail. Obviously, that's going to be anything that's bar-based. Internet merchant, that's going to be any OTA business that books under the full bar rate. Qualified discount, that could be AAA, AARP, senior citizen discount, stuff like that. And then I do like to break out my advanced purchases. So internet merchant advanced purchase, anyone who books an advanced purchase via the OTAs. And then your brand advanced purchase. And the reason why I break those out, usually that's only 3 or 4, 5 or 6 rate plans. But I like to break that out because depending on your brand, you may have a short advanced purchase window, like a 3-day advanced purchase with a 7-day advanced purchase, or you may have a 7-day and a 10-day. Or a 10-day and a 14-day. It just depends on each property. All right, brand promotions. A lot of different brand promotions out there. That could be a local promo, like a stay 2, save 10, stay 3 nights, save 15%. It's always useful to track those because a lot of times as a revenue manager, that's going to be one of the first things that you change around to kind of watch and see if you can boost production. Internet merchant promotion, that's going to be the same thing as the brand promo, but if it's offered on an OTA, you'd want to track it there. Your fade rate, this is, at the front desk, if the front desk agents are having resistance from guests, and adding another 5 or 10% discount just to get those guests in the door. It's always useful to track that because whether you like to admit it or not, it's probably happening at your property. All right, brand packages and package. This could be stay 2 nights and get 2,000 extra bonus points. This could be romance packages. And I put these kind of partially shaded here because those can be affected by your bar rate. Most of the time they are. It's your bar rate plus a flat amount. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just a flat $300 package rate. So that's why those are partially shaded. And then over here we have some of our non-bar-based market segments. And those include extended stay, which sometimes can be bar-based if it's a percentage off. A lot of times that business is so lucrative that you just want to put it at a flat rate and not have it affected by the bar rate. Governments, this is non-bar based because at least in the United States, you have a lot of per diem business that comes in a flat rate, just depending on your geographic region. All right, then you have group. This will probably be the biggest point of contention on this video. Like I said, if you're in a group heavy hotel, you could have multiple market segments of group. But for most hotels, you can go ahead and shelve, most of your SMERF business, your social, your sports, weddings, all that stuff you can usually shelve under group and it works out just okay. All right, then you have consortia. So consortia, that's kind of trickier. That's travel agents such as, American Express is a travel agency, AAA. It's basically just kind of a larger travel agent. Employee discounts, it's always useful to have those in their own market segment so you can track how much production is coming in via employee rates, just in case you're going over your daily allotment. I know a lot of brands have a daily allotment of employee rates that they can take. And the same thing goes with redemption down here, which we'll get to. Local negotiated and national negotiated. These are some of the most important non-bar based market segments. A lot of times your salesperson's bonuses will depend on how much local negotiated they bring in. This is typically smaller accounts that are local, hence the name. And then your national negotiated. This is more for the franchise hotels, but a lot of times your franchise company, your brand will have accounts that are pre-negotiated for you. So it's always useful to track those as well, just to see how their production is doing year over year. And then opaque. I like to have opaque shelved in its own market segment, just because it's its own model, right? So it's not exactly an internet merchant. It's not advanced purchase. It's not quite a promo. It's kind of its own deal. And it's usually lower rated too, so I like to track that in its own market segment. Wholesale, this is, your tour groups, things like that. It can depend, so I'll kind of leave that one open for your interpretation. And then redemption, I like to track this separately because also a lot of the brands will have allotments. So for example, you may not want to take more than 5 redemptions a day. All redemptions are guests that are using a voucher or they're using points and things like that. All right, so hopefully that didn't run over too long, but let's take a quick example of some of the things you can do once you have your market segments established and you're tracking production by market segment. So let's take this demo hotel here, and you've got your local negotiated here. Right off the bat, I see that this hotel is down 183 room nights in local negotiated, so that might be a red flag. They do have some ADR growth, but they're down overall about 13,500 in local negotiated. But it looks like they've done a good job of growing their group business. So they're up 420 room nights in group, they're up 217 room nights in group with a total of 420 room nights. Last year, they only did 203. Retail, they're mostly flat, but a little bit down here in room nights on retail, but they do have excellent ADR growth. So these will be things that you're looking at on a revenue call, for example. So this is just by market segment, and then you will drill down further into rate plans as well. But I think this has been a pretty decent crash course in why you should track your market segments. I will throw up a couple links here, probably at the start and the end of the video. So check out my new blog that I started. It's called Hotel Revenue MGMT, so Hotel Revenue Management .com. And then also too, here's a channel you can follow. This is the Kriya RevGEN channel, and this has some of my past videos on here as well. And also there's going to be some unique content put out here as well. So this will be a fun one to watch. All right, thank you. Bye.